Hi friends, hope you are all doing fine. I am Dr. Ganguly. Welcome to my channel. So today I am going to discuss a topic that what is the situation if you have two PhD advisors, and this is a situation which can happen to some of you. Some of you may actually want this situation to happen, and on some cases this situation may be thrust on you. So I will look at the two aspects of this problem, the good part and the bad part. So let's look at the good part first. So I would say that the best situation where a co-advisor is useful if you have a research problem which requires two disparate aspects. So it could be something where two different disciplines are there and your research problem entails a symbiosis of these two disciplines. For example, you could be working on mechanics and machine learning and trying to combine these two things together. So if one of your supervisors is an expert in mechanics, the second one is an expert in machine learning, then this would lead to a good outcome for your research work. The second case could be something like one person is an expert in computation and the second person is an expert in experiment. So in this case also, one person may help you formulate your computational problem, the second person may help you do some experiments in the lab. You may be able to use his or her lab also. So it's often the case in a university that any infrastructure which is built by a professor belongs to that professor. So this kind of co-supervisor situation may actually help you do better in research. You may be able to do both experiments and computation, or theory and computation, as the case may be. So these are the positive cases, and I would say these are cases where if your proposal actually had this kind of problem, maybe these two professors wrote a proposal together and so now you are their joint student. So this makes a lot of sense. Now a second case is sometimes trust on people, and this is a situation where some universities have a regulation that if a professor is very close to his or her retirement age, then they have to take a student with a joint supervisor. And this is also quite legitimate, because what happens here is that you are able to take the wisdom of the more senior person versus the higher energy level and newness of technology of the relative younger person and mold them together to do your research. So again, when the senior professor retires here, you are transferred to the junior professor, and this goes on very well. So these are also cases where a co-supervisor can be useful. Now a third case could be where out of some random chance you have a situation where you have a monk supervisor and a corporate supervisor. So this kind of situation can also happen. So I know of certain cases where a collaboration was there between a very monkish mathematical supervisor and somebody who was totally into computation, who was more of a corporate type, and this also can result in a lot of good work if you are able to manage these two supervisor and then their personality differences quite well. And in fact, you may actually learn the art of being a good time management person from a corporate supervisor, and also the art of not always sticking to time but letting your mind flow into newer problems from the monkish supervisor. So these are all the possible good scenarios which can come out of joint supervisor. Now let me look at the bad, and unfortunately this also tends to happen. So I would say the least bad situation is if you have a dormant supervisor, and this happens in some cases where you may have picked up a problem and out of some chance encounter or event, maybe you have a joint supervisor. Maybe your supervisor had crossed his quota of students, and so he was given a 0.5 student, so he had to share you with somebody else. So these kind of things can also take place now and then. Now this is not bad if the dormant supervisor remains dormant throughout, and at the end he is fine with whatever PhD you are coming out with. You can also think of the positive side of this being a fault tolerant system. Maybe something unforeseen happens to your non-dormant supervisor. The dormant supervisor can still guide you, at least on paper, at that point. Now the problems start happening if there is any kind of dissonance between supervisor, and this can happen at a personality level. Sometimes people who are friendly at one time slowly stop being friendly or suddenly stop being friendly, so this is not a good situation. There is also a possibility of research dissonance. So in this case, where you have a research problem, your advisor thinks you should have one problem, your co-supervisor thinks something else. Maybe your supervisor thinks you should follow a computational path, your co-supervisor thinks you should do some prototyping, and so on. So these kind of problems can become severe if there is no peace deal reached between these two supervisors. So this is often a situation, so you need to watch out for that. So you need to be careful that you do not spend all your time brokering some kind of peace treaty between your two supervisors. So keep that in mind whenever you are getting into a situation with multiple supervisors, is that you need to see how is their relationship in general. Do they gel well? Do they regularly go out and have coffee or tea together? Do they seem to talk a lot, and so on? Sometimes it happens that two supervisors are in two different departments, and then you need to be careful about the possible interaction. So you also need to set up some regular meetings so that now and then, at least each few weeks or certainly once a month, you have a situation where both your supervisors and you meet and have some discussion, so that it should not happen that one supervisor thinks you are doing fine and the second supervisor then thinks that you have made no progress in your research. So unfortunately these things do happen. So it's partly the student's responsibility, because as far as academia is concerned, there are no fixed processes many times. So you need to make sure that your supervisors are on the same wavelength, that they are following your research well, and that there is no foreseeable dissonance down the road as far as your research is concerned. So these were some points I had for you about co-supervisor and whether that is always good for you. So remember, 1 plus 1 is 2 in math, but as far as supervisors are concerned, 1 plus 1 may be 2, maybe 1, maybe 0.5, maybe 0. So you need to keep that in mind. So I'll stop this video here and I will see you in a new video sometime soon. See you then.